This video contains audio content only. There are no visual elements or images accompanying the audio. If you're expecting to see video footage, please note that this is an intentional audio-only presentation. We recommend listening to this content rather than watching the screen. Thank you for your understanding and enjoy the audio. Welcome to this exploration of the Alawites, a fascinating and often misunderstood community. In this easy-to-understand presentation, we'll delve into their rich history, unique beliefs, and complex relationship with power in Syria. Join us as we unravel the mysteries surrounding this enigmatic group and shed light on their journey from a persecuted minority to a position of significant influence. Throughout this presentation, we will journey through centuries of Alawite history, tracing their origins and exploring the evolution of their faith. We'll uncover the secrets of their beliefs, dispelling common misconceptions and revealing the core tenets that define their unique spiritual cosmology. We'll also examine the historical forces that shaped their identity, from centuries of persecution under various empires to the profound impact of the French Mandate period. Prepare to be captivated by a story of survival, adaptation, and the intricate dance between religion and politics. We'll explore the rise of the Assad family to power and its profound impact on the Alawite community, examining the complex interplay of loyalty, fear, and opportunity. We'll also delve into the sensitive topic of sectarianism in Syria, understanding how historical tensions and political manipulations have fueled conflict and division. By the end of this presentation, you'll have a deeper understanding of the Alawites, their history, beliefs, and their pivotal role in shaping the modern Syrian landscape. You'll gain insights into the complexities of their relationship with power, the challenges they face, and the potential for a new dawn in a fractured Syria. Join us as we embark on this enlightening journey of discovery, uncovering the rich tapestry of Alawite history and its enduring relevance in the 21st century. Chapter 1. A Shadowed Past, From Persecution to Power. The Alawites, an enigmatic ethno-religious group nestled primarily in the Levant, emerge from the mists of 9th century Syria. Their narrative, however, begins not with the ascendancy of power, but with the weight of persecution, a crucible that would forge their identity and ultimately shape their destiny. Unlike the traditional narrative that solely links them to Hassan al-Askari and Ibn Nusayr, their origins remain a subject of debate, with some theories tracing their lineage back to the ancient tapestry of the Middle East, connecting them to peoples like the Arameans, Canaanites, Hittites, and even the Mardet. These whispers of ancient connections add to the mystique surrounding the Alawites, a group whose beliefs and practices were often shrouded in secrecy. The more conventional narrative places their religious genesis in the teachings of Ibn Nusayr, a figure who emerged during a tumultuous period in Shia Islam following the death of the 11th Imam, al-Askari. Disputes over succession plagued the Shia community, and it was in this atmosphere of uncertainty that Ibn Nusayr declared himself the Bab, Gate, and Ism, name, of the deceased Imam, claiming to be the inheritor of his secret teachings. This claim placed Ibn Nusayr and his followers within the tradition of Gulat, early mystical Islamic sects known for their esoteric interpretations and often extreme veneration of key figures. This theological distinction set them apart from the nascent Twelver Shia tradition and led to their excommunication by representatives of the hidden Imam. Another pivotal figure in early Alawite history was al-Qasibi, a follower of Ibn Nusayr who played a crucial role in organizing the Alawite community during the Hamdanid rule in northern Syria between 947 and 1008. Al-Qasibi's leadership consolidated the Alawites' presence in the region, setting the stage for their future development. His efforts, however, were not without conflict, as he faced rivalry from another sect, the Ash'ariya, who also claimed a connection to the hidden teachings of the Imams. This theological divergence, coupled with their secretive practices, cast a long shadow of suspicion and hostility upon the Alawites. Accusations of heresy became a constant refrain, echoing through the centuries under the rule of successive empires. The Ottomans, Abbasids, and Mamluks, among others, subjected the Alawites to periods of subjugation and outright persecution. Far from being a mere listing of empires, their history under these rulers is a chronicle of massacres, forced conversions, and relentless social discrimination. In the 14th century, the renowned Hanbali scholar, Ibn Taymiyyah, issued fatwas declaring Shias, Alawites, Druze, and Ismailis as infidels. These pronouncements, imbued with religious authority, had devastating consequences for the Alawite community, further solidifying their status as outsiders and intensifying the persecution they faced. To survive, the Alawites turned inward, seeking refuge not only in the physical isolation of the mountainous regions of northwestern Syria, specifically the Alawite mountains bordered by the Al-Ghab plain, but also in the practice of tachaya, the art of religious dissimulation. This practice, born out of necessity, allowed them to conceal their true beliefs from outsiders, offering a veneer of conformity while safeguarding their unique faith. They lived a shadowed existence, their true identity hidden beneath layers of secrecy, their rituals performed in the privacy of their homes or the secluded embrace of the mountains. This geographic isolation, while preserving their distinct traditions, also contributed to their marginalization within the broader Syrian society. It separated them from the mainstream, reinforcing the perception of their otherness. Their presence, however, was not limited to the mountains. Even before their eventual rise to power, Alawites were present in urban centers like Damascus, Aleppo, and Homs, as well as in villages like Ain Fit and Zawara in the Golan Heights, a testament to their historical presence throughout Syria. The arrival of the French Mandate in 1920 marked a turning point. French policies, particularly the creation of the Alawite state, a separate territory carved out of Syria, inadvertently contributed to the Alawites' political mobilization. The Alawite state, though short-lived, provided a taste of self-governance and fostered a sense of collective identity. It also laid the groundwork for their increasing influence within the Syrian military. The French actively recruited minorities into their armed forces, seeing in them a counterbalance to the Sunni majority. Alawites, eager for opportunities and driven by a desire to escape their historical marginalization, joined the military in large numbers. Even seemingly mundane roles, like that of the Alawite falconer documented during World War II, offer a glimpse into the community's diverse contributions during this period. The Alawites' journey from persecuted minority to a position of influence within the Syrian military during the French Mandate period is a complex narrative of survival, adaptation, and the unintended consequences of colonial policies. It is a story of a community forged in the fires of adversity, whose shadowed past laid the groundwork for their eventual, and equally complex, rise to power. Chapter 2. The Enigma of Alawism. Secrets of the Divine Trinity and the Cycle of Souls. The Alawites, a community whose history is intertwined with the very fabric of Syria, hold a faith as intricate and layered as the mountainous terrain they have long called home. Alawism, their religion, is a tapestry woven with threads of ancient beliefs, esoteric interpretations, and a profound reverence for Ali ibn Abi Talib, the figure who stands at the heart of their spiritual cosmology. This faith, however, is not easily understood, its core tenets and rituals historically veiled in secrecy, a practice known as kitman. This secrecy, while safeguarding their beliefs from persecution, has also given rise to a multitude of rumors and misconceptions, obscuring the true nature of Alawism from outsiders and even many within the Alawite community itself. Central to Alawite theology is the concept of a divine trinity, a unity composed of three distinct emanations: mana, meaning ism, name, and bab, door. These are not separate gods, but rather facets of the one indivisible God, each playing a vital role in the unfolding of divine creation and revelation. Mana represents the divine essence, the unknowable and transcendent source of all existence. It is the hidden meaning, the ultimate reality that lies beyond human comprehension. Ism, the name, is the manifestation of the divine in the world, the veil through which the unknowable mana becomes perceptible. It is the word, the form, the tangible expression of the divine. Bab, the door, is the pathway to understanding, the intermediary between humanity and the divine. It is through the Bab that the divine message is revealed, and it is through the Bab that humans can seek connection with the divine. These three emanations, Alawites believe, have appeared in human form throughout history, undergoing a cyclical process of reincarnation 7 times. Each cycle reveals a deeper understanding of the divine, a progressive unveiling of the hidden mana. In each of these cycles, the Trinity manifests as a triad of figures, each embodying one of the three emanations. The seventh and final incarnation, the culmination of this divine cycle, is believed to be Ali as Mana, Muhammad as Ism, and Salman al-Farisi as Bab. This belief in the divinity of Ali, a central figure in Shia Islam, sets the Alawites apart from mainstream Shia traditions, which, while venerating Ali, do not ascribe divinity to him. It is a belief that has historically led to accusations of heresy from both Sunni and Shia orthodoxies. Reincarnation, a concept not found in mainstream Islam, is integral to Alawite theology. It is not merely a cycle of birth and death, but a journey of spiritual evolution. The form a soul takes in its next life is determined by its actions in previous lives. Righteousness leads to elevation, a closer proximity to the divine source, while impiety results in descent, a further distancing from the divine. This belief profoundly influences Alawite ethics and behavior, emphasizing the importance of moral conduct and the pursuit of spiritual enlightenment. While specific stories or examples from Alawite tradition are rarely shared with outsiders due to the practice of kitman, the underlying principle of karmic consequence shapes their understanding of life, death, and the ongoing journey of the soul. Alawite rituals and practices, also shrouded in secrecy, differ significantly from mainstream Islamic traditions. Wine, often seen as forbidden in Islam, plays a central role in their ceremonies, symbolizing spiritual communion and the divine presence. It is not consumed casually, but rather as a sacramental element in specific rituals, its use imbued with deep symbolic meaning. While other unique rituals exist, the details are rarely revealed to outsiders. The practice of kitman dictates that these sacred practices remain within the inner circle of initiates, the Khasa, safeguarding them from misinterpretation and potential persecution. Even the uninitiated majority within the Alawite community, the Amma, are not privy to the full extent of these rituals, their understanding limited to the basic tenets of the faith. The Alawites revere the Quran as one of their holy books, but their interpretation differs significantly from mainstream Islamic interpretations. They believe in the symbolic and esoteric meaning of the Quranic verses, seeking hidden truths beneath the surface of the text. This approach aligns more with the early Batiniyya and other Gulat sects, who emphasized allegorical interpretations and the importance of inner knowledge. Other texts, such as the teachings of Ibn Nusayr and al-Qasibi, also inform Alawite beliefs and practices. These texts, however, are not widely circulated or readily available, their study restricted to the initiated few. The specific interpretations and divergences from mainstream Islam are rarely discussed openly, the practice of kitman serving as a protective shield against potential accusations of heresy. Secrecy, embodied in the practice of kitman, is paramount in Alawism. It is not merely a matter of concealing beliefs, but a strategy for survival. Throughout history, Alawites have faced persecution for their unique faith. Kitman has allowed them to maintain their religious identity while navigating the often hostile landscape of a Sunni-dominated region. The consequences of revealing the secrets of the faith are severe, ranging from social ostracism to potential violence. This practice has deeply impacted the Alawite community's relationship with the outside world, fostering a sense of insularity and reinforcing the perception of their otherness. Historical accounts abound with tales of Alawites concealing their beliefs to avoid persecution, a testament to the importance of secrecy in their long struggle for survival. Even within the Alawite community, diversity exists. Rural, traditional Alawites, often living in isolated villages, tend to adhere more closely to the esoteric aspects of the faith and the strict observance of kitman. Urban, more assimilated Alawites, particularly those in larger cities, may express their faith in less overt ways, adapting to the demands of a more integrated and open society. This internal diversity, however, is often overshadowed by the external pressures and perceptions that have shaped the Alawite community's relationship with the outside world. Their beliefs and practices have evolved over time, adapting to changing circumstances while maintaining the core tenets that define their unique religious identity. Chapter 3. The Asad Embrace, a Covenant of Fear and Loyalty. The rise of the Asad family to power in Syria represents a pivotal chapter in Alawite history, a complex narrative of intertwined destinies, where loyalty, fear, and opportunity converged to reshape the community's relationship with the Syrian state. Hafez al-Assad's 1970 coup d'état was not merely a political takeover. It was the culmination of a long and complicated history, deeply rooted in the Alawites' experience of marginalization and their evolving relationship with power, particularly during the French Mandate period. The French Mandate, 1920 to 1946. Far from being a monolithic experience for the Alawites, was a period of complex interactions and shifting alliances. The French, employing a divide-and-rule strategy, recognized and reinforced the Alawites' distinct identity, separating them from both the Sunni majority and mainstream Shia communities. This recognition, while offering a degree of protection, also exacerbated existing sectarian divisions. The creation of the Alawite state, a separate entity carved out of Syria, though short-lived, further solidified their sense of unique identity and fueled aspirations for self-determination. Some Alawite leaders, wary of being incorporated into a Sunni-dominated Syria, even petitioned the French to annex their territory to Greater Lebanon, demonstrating the diverse political aspirations within the community. The French actively recruited Alawites into their armed forces, not only as soldiers but also in specialized roles like falconers. This recruitment provided opportunities for Alawites to gain military experience and rise within the ranks, laying the foundation for their future dominance in the Syrian military. However, this also created a dependence on the French and fostered resentment among other communities who saw the Alawites as collaborators. The Alawite community's relationship with the French was thus a double-edged sword, offering both opportunity and the seeds of future conflict. Hafez al-Assad, himself a product of this complex history, masterfully manipulated the Alawites' historical fears and aspirations to consolidate his power. He understood the deep-seated insecurity born from centuries of persecution and offered the Alawites protection and privilege in exchange for their loyalty. This was not merely a political strategy, it was a carefully orchestrated campaign to bind the Alawite community's fate to his own. He appointed Alawites to key positions in the military, intelligence agencies, and government ministries, creating a power structure that heavily favored the community. For example, Ali Duba, an Alawite from Latakia, rose through the ranks of the military to become a powerful general, embodying the opportunities available to Alawites under Assad's rule. Economically, Assad directed resources towards Alawite regions, improving infrastructure and creating jobs, further solidifying their dependence on the regime. These material benefits, however, were not evenly distributed, with many poor and rural Alawites feeling left behind. Some, like Saleh from Homs, expressed resentment, stating they joined the army out of economic necessity, not love for Assad. This transactional nature of loyalty became a defining characteristic of the Assad regime's relationship with the Alawite community. The Ba'ath Party, initially a secular and pan-Arab movement, became, under Hafez al-Assad, a tool for reshaping Alawite identity and enforcing a sadist ideology. Assad co-opted Ba'athist rhetoric to intertwine Alawite identity with the state, presenting himself as the sole protector of the community and the guarantor of their survival. Traditional Alawite leaders and religious figures were gradually marginalized, their authority replaced by Assad's own cult of personality. Specific examples of this marginalization include the weakening of traditional tribal structures and the suppression of religious practices that deviated from the regime's approved narrative. A sadist ideology, disseminated through schools, media, and the military, emphasized loyalty to the state and the leader, gradually supplanting traditional Alawite identity and creating a culture of fear and obedience. This ideology permeated all aspects of Alawite life, from education and employment to religious expression and social interactions. The covenant of fear and loyalty that Hafez al-Assad established was not without its cracks. Despite the regime's efforts to suppress dissent, some Alawites dared to challenge Assad's rule. For instance, Alawite activists in Homs openly criticized the regime's economic policies and the centralized nature of power under Assad. Others, like Lama Abbas, took to social media to express their discontent, risking arrest and persecution. These acts of defiance, though often met with swift and brutal repression, reveal the underlying tensions within the Alawite community and the regime's anxieties about maintaining control. The story of the Alawite father who reportedly killed his daughters and himself rather than let them be captured by Sunni vigilantes circulated within the Alawite community, underscoring the pervasive atmosphere of fear and paranoia. The Alawites' historical desire for an independent state, dating back to the French Mandate period, continued to simmer beneath the surface. During the Mandate, Alawites petitioned for a separate state, outlining their fears of Sunni domination and seeking international recognition. These aspirations were ultimately thwarted by the incorporation of the Alawite state into the newly formed Syrian Republic in 1936. However, the dream of an independent Alawite homeland never truly disappeared, resurfacing during periods of heightened insecurity and sectarian tension. The Syrian civil war, with its brutal sectarian violence and the rise of extremist groups, further fueled these anxieties, leading some Alawites to envision a separate state as the only guarantee of their survival. This Alawite state project, though not openly embraced by the Assad regime, became a subtext of the conflict, shaping the community's perception of the war and their relationship with the regime. The Assad embrace, therefore, was not a monolithic experience for the Alawite community. It was a complex and often contradictory relationship, where loyalty was intertwined with fear, opportunity with resentment, and the promise of security with the specter of annihilation. The Assad regime, while offering protection and privilege, also exploited Alawite vulnerabilities and manipulated their fears to maintain its grip on power. This covenant of fear and loyalty, forged in the crucible of historical persecution and cemented by the brutal realities of the Syrian civil war, profoundly shaped the Alawite community's destiny and continues to influence their relationship with the Syrian state and other communities in the region. Chapter 4. The Spectre of Sectarianism, a Nation Divided. The Assad regime, built on the foundation of Alawite power, sowed the seeds of deep sectarian divisions within Syria, ultimately paving the way for the devastating civil war that erupted in 2011. While consolidating Alawite dominance, the regime's policies simultaneously fueled resentment and mistrust among other communities, particularly the Sunni majority, transforming Syria from a mosaic of diverse communities into a battleground of sectarian conflict. The favoritism shown towards Alawites was not merely perceived, it was deeply embedded in the structure of the Syrian state. Alawites held a disproportionate number of key positions in the government, military, and business sectors. As noted by Stratfor, roughly 70% of the 200,000 career soldiers in the Syrian army were Alawites, with an estimated 80% of officers also belonging to the sect. The most elite division, the Republican Guard, led by President Bashar al-Assad's brother Mar, was an entirely Alawite force. This Alawite dominance extended beyond the military. Alawite families had greater access to public sector jobs and economic opportunities, creating a system of privilege that fueled resentment among other communities who felt excluded from the levers of power. This imbalance was further exacerbated by the regime's economic policies, which often favored Alawite businesses and regions, leaving other communities struggling with poverty and unemployment. For example, in Latakia, Alawite families flaunted their wealth with fancy villas and luxury cars, often smuggled into the country without license plates, while just a short distance away, barefoot children played outside small mud homes with limited access to electricity and water. The 1982 Hama massacre, a brutal crackdown on a Sunni uprising led by the Muslim Brotherhood, became a symbol of the regime's ruthlessness and its willingness to use extreme violence against its own citizens. Thousands of Sunnis were killed in Hama, a city with a mixed population that included Sunnis, Shias, Christians, and Alawites. The erection of a large statue of Hafez al-Assad in Hama after the massacre was not merely a symbol of the regime's power. It was a deliberate act of intimidation, a stark reminder to the Sunni community of the consequences of challenging Alawite rule. This event left an enduring scar on the Syrian psyche and became a rallying cry for those who sought to overthrow the Assad regime. Far from being a singular event, Hama foreshadowed the systematic use of violence against civilian populations that would characterize the Syrian civil war. The Assad regime's manipulation of sectarian fears was a central strategy for maintaining power. The regime portrayed itself as the protector of minorities, including Alawites, Christians, Druze, and Ismailis, against a hostile Sunni majority. This narrative, while effective in securing the loyalty of some minority groups, also served to deepen societal divisions and create a climate of mistrust. State-controlled media and propaganda consistently depicted the opposition as Sunni extremists, intent on revenge against Alawites and other minorities. This narrative not only served to justify the regime's brutal crackdown on dissent but also fueled a cycle of fear and paranoia that made any form of intercommunal reconciliation increasingly difficult. For example, during the early days of the uprising, videos emerged showing Syrian protesters chanting not only against the regime but also against Alawites in general. These videos, though possibly not representative of the entire opposition, stoked Alawite fears and reinforced the regime's narrative of sectarian threat. The exiled Syrian Sheikh Adnan al-Arawar, with his fiery anti-Alawite rhetoric broadcast from Saudi Arabia, further fueled these fears, even calling for the extermination of Alawites once the regime was toppled. The regime's policies also had a profound impact on other minority groups. Christians, while not facing the same level of systematic oppression as Sunnis, experienced discrimination and marginalization. They were often excluded from key positions in government and the military and faced restrictions on their religious practices. The regime's control over Christian religious institutions further limited their autonomy. Druze and Ismailis, while generally maintaining a more cautious neutrality, also experienced pressures from the regime to demonstrate their loyalty. The regime's divide-and-rule tactics extended to these communities, playing on their fears and offering limited protections in exchange for their support. Instances of both cooperation and conflict emerged between these minority groups, their relationships often shaped by the regime's manipulation and the shifting dynamics of the conflict. The Assad regime's actions inadvertently created the conditions for its own downfall. The economic hardships and marginalization experienced by certain communities, particularly Sunnis, fueled the initial protests in 2011. The regime's brutal response to these protests, including the use of live ammunition against unarmed demonstrators, further escalated tensions and ultimately led to armed conflict. The regime's release of hundreds of Salafi jihadists from prisons, a move seen by many as a cynical attempt to radicalize the opposition and justify its crackdown, further inflamed sectarian tensions and contributed to the rise of extremist groups. The regime's insistence on maintaining power at all costs, even as the country descended into chaos, alienated many of its former supporters, including some within the Alawite community. The regime's propaganda machine played a crucial role in shaping public opinion and exacerbating sectarian tensions. State-controlled media consistently demonized the opposition, portraying them as terrorists and enemies of the state. This propaganda, often laced with sectarian rhetoric, contributed to the dehumanization of certain groups and fueled a climate of fear and mistrust. The regime also used more subtle forms of propaganda, such as carefully orchestrated public appearances and staged events, to project an image of strength and unity. These efforts, however, became increasingly ineffective as the reality of the conflict on the ground contradicted the regime's carefully crafted narrative. The story of sectarianism in Syria under the Assad regime is a tragedy of missed opportunities and self-inflicted wounds. The regime's policies, initially designed to maintain stability, ultimately led to the country's unraveling. The manipulation of sectarian fears, the systematic use of violence, and the regime's refusal to address legitimate grievances created a cycle of violence and mistrust that continues to haunt Syria today. The regime's actions, far from preserving Alawite power, ultimately jeopardized the community's future and plunged Syria into a devastating civil war. Chapter 5. Fractured Allegiance. Cracks in the Alawite Fortress. The Syrian civil war, once perceived as a distant storm by many Alawites, has violently breached the walls of their perceived fortress, exposing deep fissures within the community. The narrative of unwavering Alawite loyalty to the Assad regime, carefully cultivated for decades, is crumbling under the weight of staggering losses, economic devastation, and the regime's own callous disregard for its supposed loyalists. The fortress, once a symbol of Alawite strength and security, is now a prison of fear and disillusionment, its walls echoing with the whispers of dissent. The war's human cost has been particularly devastating for the Alawites. Far from being mere statistics, the heavy losses cited in official reports represent shattered families and a generation decimated. The story of the father in Akrab, near Homs, who murdered his daughters and then himself to prevent their capture and abuse by approaching Sunni vigilantes, speaks volumes about the terror that gripped the community. This horrific act, whether fact or folklore, became a chilling parable, whispered among Alawite families, a testament to the depths of their fear and the extreme measures they were willing to take to protect their loved ones. The Doma campaign of 2018 offered a brief glimmer of hope, with the return of Alawite hostages held captive for years. The televised images of their arrival, families tearfully reunited, were meant to showcase the regime's strength and compassion. However, for many, these scenes only amplified the anxieties surrounding those still missing, their fates unknown, their families left in agonizing limbo. The joy of reunion was overshadowed by the gnawing uncertainty and the regime's seeming inability or unwillingness to account for all those taken. The regime's disregard for its own supporters is perhaps most poignantly illustrated by the story of the Alawite mother who diligently visited her son's grave for 4 years, only to discover it contained the remains of another soldier. This cruel deception, a bureaucratic blunder or a deliberate act of indifference, reveals the regime's callous disregard for the very people it claims to protect. It is a betrayal of trust that resonates deeply within the Alawite community, eroding the foundations of loyalty that the Assad family has so carefully constructed. The struggle of Alawite women to obtain death certificates for their sons, a necessary step to receive much-needed financial aid, further underscores this bureaucratic indifference. These women, many of whom have lost their primary breadwinners, face endless delays, dismissive officials, and demands for bribes, their pleas for assistance met with bureaucratic stonewalling. The complexities of Alawite political views defy simplistic categorization. While fear of Sunni retribution has undoubtedly been a powerful motivator for Alawite support of the Assad regime, the reality is far more nuanced. As Farid, an Alawite refugee in Beirut, confessed, "I don't like Bashar Assad. In fact, I hate him. He is the one who put the Alawites into this situation." This sentiment, echoed by others like Saleh in Homs, reveals the transactional nature of much of the Alawite support. For many, particularly those from impoverished inland areas, loyalty is not a matter of ideological conviction, but of economic necessity and perceived security. 90% of Alawites join the army for economic reasons, Saleh explained, not because they love Bashar or because they love Syria. These individuals feel used, their lives and livelihoods sacrificed to protect a regime that offers little in return. "We feel that we are just the front line," Saleh lamented. "We are fighting just to protect the regime, because we have no choice." This resentment has found expression in various forms of dissent. The formation of the Free Alawite Movement, a group openly opposing the Assad regime, represents a significant break from the traditional narrative of Alawite unity. Online campaigns, such as #SpeakUpAgainst Assad and #WhyNon, have provided platforms for Alawites to voice their grievances and demand accountability from the regime. These online expressions of dissent, while often anonymous due to fear of reprisal, represent a growing crack in the Alawite fortress, a challenge to the regime's carefully constructed narrative of unwavering loyalty. Specific incidents have further fueled Alawite anger and dissent. The protests in Homs against Governor Talal al-Barazi after the devastating car bombing near Akrama al-Mazomi Elementary School, which killed and injured dozens of children, demonstrated the community's outrage at the regime's perceived indifference to their suffering. Suleiman al-Assad's murder of a Syrian Air Force colonel in Latakia, an act of brazen impunity by a member of the ruling family, further inflamed tensions within the Alawite community. The colonel's brother's accusation that Suleiman had disparaged the Syrian military before the killing struck a particularly sensitive nerve, as the military is deeply intertwined with Alawite identity and seen as the community's primary protector. Alawite writers, journalists, and social media influencers have also begun to break the silence, using online platforms to criticize the regime and expose its corruption and abuses. Lama Abbas, an Alawite writer from Jabla, gained notoriety for her scathing Facebook posts denouncing the regime's economic policies and the obsequious behavior of its Alawite supporters. Bashar Barham, a pro-regime influencer, publicly criticized the attempted detention of Abbas, describing it as an act by occupiers. Ahmad Ibrahim Ismail, another Alawite influencer, exposed the corruption within the Syrian parliament, calling the entire system a farce. These voices, though still a minority, represent a growing chorus of dissent within the Alawite community, challenging the regime's narrative and exposing the cracks in its facade of unity. The regime's response to this growing dissent has been a mix of repression and carefully orchestrated attempts at appeasement. The attempted detention of Lama Abbas, though ultimately unsuccessful due to her powerful family connections, demonstrated the regime's willingness to silence dissenting voices within the Alawite community. The subsequent online backlash, however, revealed the limits of its control and the growing boldness of Alawite critics. Wasim al-Assad's condescending reprimand of Alawites for their discontent, delivered from the comfort of a luxury hotel in Damascus, further fueled resentment within the community, highlighting the disconnect between the privileged elite and the impoverished majority. Assad's visit to Latakia and Asma al-Assad's visit to Tartus after the devastating wildfires of 2020 were carefully staged events, designed to project an image of empathy and responsiveness. Assad's promises of financial compensation and Asma's calls for dedication and hard work were meant to quell Alawite anger and reassure the community of the regime's commitment to their well-being. However, these gestures, often perceived as empty promises, have done little to address the underlying causes of Alawite discontent. The regime's inability to provide basic necessities, its corruption and mismanagement, and its callous disregard for the suffering of its own supporters have eroded the foundations of trust and loyalty. Alawite loyalty is a complex and evolving phenomenon, shaped by a multitude of factors. Fear of retribution from extremist groups, particularly ISIS, remains a powerful motivator. The horrific atrocities committed by ISIS against Alawites and other minorities have reinforced the regime's narrative that it is the only guarantor of their safety. Economic dependence on the regime, particularly for those employed in the public sector or benefiting from state patronage, also plays a significant role. However, as the war has dragged on and the Syrian economy has collapsed, this dependence has become a source of resentment for many Alawites who feel trapped and exploited. Historical grievances, rooted in centuries of persecution and marginalization, also inform Alawite identity and their relationship with the Syrian state. The memory of past massacres and discrimination fuels a sense of collective vulnerability and reinforces the belief that only a strong, Alawite-led state can protect them from their enemies. However, the Syrian civil war has also led to a shift in Alawite identity. The decline in Arab national identity and the rise of a more insular Alawite identity, fueled by the regime's sectarian rhetoric and the brutal realities of the conflict, have further isolated the community and hindered reconciliation efforts. The Alawite community today is a microcosm of Syria itself, fractured, disillusioned, and grappling with an uncertain future. The fortress, once a symbol of strength, is crumbling from within, its walls breached by the war's devastation and the regime's own betrayal. The whispers of dissent, once confined to private conversations and online forums, are growing louder, challenging the Assad family's narrative and threatening the very foundations of their power. The future of the Alawites, like the future of Syria, remains uncertain, but one thing is clear: the old covenant of fear and loyalty is broken, and the Alawite community is at a crossroads. Chapter 6. Whispers of a New Dawn: Alawite Identity in a Fractured Syria. The Syrian civil war has irrevocably altered the Alawite community's relationship with the Syrian state and its own identity. The once seemingly impenetrable fortress of Alawite loyalty to the Assad regime is now riddled with cracks, revealing a complex landscape of fear, resentment, and a yearning for change. The future of Alawite identity in a post-war Syria remains uncertain, a tapestry woven with the threads of both profound challenges and nascent opportunities. The challenges are formidable. The war's devastation has left deep scars, both physical and psychological. The staggering loss of life, particularly among young Alawite men conscripted into the military, has left families shattered and communities decimated. Many Alawites, like Saleh from Homs, feel exploited by the regime, their lives sacrificed for a cause they no longer believe in. "We feel that we are just the front line," he lamented, "fighting just to protect the regime because we have no choice." The economic hardships caused by the collapsed economy have further exacerbated these feelings of resentment. The Syrian pound has plummeted, leaving many Alawites, even those employed in the public sector, struggling to survive. The wildfires that ravaged the coastal region in 2020, destroying homes and livelihoods, only added to their woes. The regime's response, with its empty promises of compensation and its inability or unwillingness to provide basic necessities, has further eroded the trust and loyalty it once enjoyed. The deep sectarian divisions created by the conflict present another significant challenge. The horrific atrocities committed by extremist groups like ISIS against Alawites and other minorities have fueled a cycle of fear and mistrust. Alawites, like Farid, who fled to Beirut, express a deep-seated fear of retribution from other sects, particularly Sunnis, should the Assad regime fall. "If I was kidnapped by the Free Syrian Army," he said, "they would kill me for simply being an Alawite." This fear is not unfounded. The rhetoric of some Sunni extremists, like Sheikh Adnan al-Arawar, who called for the extermination of Alawites, has reinforced these anxieties. The war has also led to a shift in Alawite identity, with a decline in Arab national identity and a rise in a more insular Alawite identity. This insularity, while offering a sense of protection in the short term, hinders reconciliation efforts and further isolates the community. Despite these challenges, whispers of a new dawn are emerging from within the Alawite community. A growing number of Alawites are recognizing the need to redefine their identity beyond their association with the Assad regime and to actively work towards reconciliation and rebuilding. The Declaration of Identity Reform, a document authored by anonymous Alawite intellectuals, represents a significant step in this direction. This document, circulated secretly within Syria and shared with international media outlets, calls for a secular and democratic Syria, distancing the community from the Assad regime and advocating for a future based on shared values of citizenship and equality. The ruling political power, whoever embodies it, does not represent us nor does it shape our identity or preserve our safety and reputation, the authors write. This declaration, though not universally embraced within the Alawite community, represents a powerful challenge to the regime's narrative and a potential path towards healing and rebuilding trust. Alawite intellectuals and activists, both within Syria and abroad, are playing a crucial role in promoting reconciliation. Lama Abbas, despite facing the threat of detention, continues to use her platform to criticize the regime and call for change. Others, like Bashar Barham and Ahmad Ibrahim Ismail, have used social media to expose corruption and advocate for reform. These voices, though still marginalized, are becoming increasingly influential, challenging the regime's narrative and offering alternative visions for the future. The Alawite diaspora also has a significant role to play in rebuilding Syria and fostering reconciliation. The Conference of Pro-Rebellion Alawites held in Cairo in 2013, funded by wealthy Alawite businessmen, demonstrated the potential for Alawite-Sunni cooperation and the desire for a new Syria based on inclusivity and democratic principles. Figures like Ayman Asfari, CEO of Petrofac and founder of the Asfari Foundation, which promotes civil society and citizenship in the Arab world, are using their resources and influence to support a peaceful transition and a more equitable future for all Syrians. Wafik said, a prominent Alawite businessman, has reportedly attempted to persuade Assad to end the bloodshed, demonstrating the willingness of some within the diaspora to engage with the regime and advocate for change. These efforts, though not always successful, highlight the diaspora's potential to contribute to Syria's rebuilding and to foster reconciliation between Alawites and other communities. The path forward for the Alawite community is fraught with peril. The deep-seated fears and mistrust, the economic devastation, and the uncertain political future all pose significant obstacles. However, the whispers of a new dawn are growing louder. The emergence of dissenting voices, the efforts at reconciliation, and the diaspora's potential to contribute to rebuilding offer a glimmer of hope. The Alawite community is at a crossroads. The choices they make in the coming years will not only determine their own fate but also play a crucial role in shaping the future of Syria. The challenge is immense, but so too is the potential for transformation. The whispers of a new dawn may yet herald a brighter future for the Alawites and for Syria as a whole. The Alawites, a historically persecuted minority in Syria, have a complex and often misunderstood history and faith. Their beliefs, centered on a divine trinity and the concept of reincarnation, have been shrouded in secrecy for centuries, a practice known as kitman born out of necessity for survival in a predominantly Sunni region. This secrecy has contributed to misconceptions and fueled suspicion and hostility from outsiders. The French Mandate period proved pivotal, as French policies inadvertently fostered Alawite political mobilization and their increasing influence within the Syrian military. This influence culminated in the Assad family's rise to power, creating a complex relationship between the Alawite community and the Syrian state. Hafez al-Assad masterfully leveraged Alawite fears of persecution and aspirations for security, establishing a covenant of loyalty in exchange for protection and privilege. This created a system where Alawite identity became intertwined with the state, and dissent was suppressed through a combination of patronage and fear. This system, while initially providing stability and advancement for some Alawites, ultimately sowed the seeds of deep sectarian divisions within Syria. The Assad regime's favoritism towards Alawites fueled resentment among other communities, particularly the Sunni majority, contributing to the outbreak of the devastating Syrian civil war. The war itself has shattered the illusion of a unified Alawite community, exposing deep fissures and widespread disillusionment. The heavy human and economic costs of the conflict, coupled with the regime's perceived indifference to the suffering of its own supporters, have eroded the foundations of Alawite loyalty. Dissent, once whispered in private, is now finding public expression through online campaigns and the formation of opposition groups. The Alawite community is at a crossroads, grappling with a fractured identity and an uncertain future. These findings offer valuable insights into the complex interplay of religion, politics, and identity in the Middle East. The Alawite experience demonstrates how historical persecution can shape a community's relationship with power, and how a minority group's quest for security can inadvertently contribute to broader societal divisions. The study of the Alawites also highlights the importance of understanding the nuances of religious beliefs and practices, particularly in regions marked by sectarian conflict. Furthermore, the evolving Alawite identity during and after the Syrian civil war provides a compelling case study for exploring how conflict can reshape individual and collective identities. Looking forward, research on the Alawites could explore the potential for reconciliation and rebuilding in a post-conflict Syria. How can historical grievances be addressed and trust be rebuilt between communities? What role can the Alawite diaspora play in fostering reconciliation and supporting a peaceful transition? How can Alawite identity be redefined beyond its association with the Assad regime? These are just some of the questions that future research could address. We hope this exploration of the Alawites has shed light on this often misunderstood community. What are your thoughts on the complexities of Alawite history and identity? Share your perspectives and questions in the comments below. We encourage you to subscribe for more insightful content and to suggest topics for future videos. Remember, the journey of understanding is a continuous process, and curiosity is the key to unlocking new perspectives.